Hello,
Hi, Victoria.
Rachel. How are
Hi.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you so much. Thanks for taking time to chat.
Yeah, of course. So to start, I wanted to ask you, I love that this franchise is directed by women. Particularly, it's two Black women who have taken on the old guard, and I think that's so cool. But it is very interesting how you both approach this franchise because it is different, but still is a great continuation of what Gina did before. What for you is the biggest kind of part of this franchise that you wanted to keep alive when you stepped in to take over on the second film?
Ooh, my immediate instinct was heart. The
Hmm.
first film had so much heart, and the way that the performances were shaped, the way the writing, the storytelling into the action, it had heart.
Hmm.
Everything, that you cared about them at every beat and turn, and I would say that that was important to me. And then I think, the way that they fought was important to me. So the way that they expressed themselves as people who cannot die, which is like unbelievably fascinating. So how would you fight? And I mean, I've wondered this since I was 9 years old. How would I fight if I couldn't die? And
Hmm.
then that we flipped that into Andy could die now. So how does she fight, and what's the difference? And then there's another character that and then there's another character, and you wonder. So there was these subtextual investigations into how do you move and fight and do combat if you um, can walk away or cannot walk away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. I was going to ask you about the fight sequences because I do think the stakes this time around are so much different.
Mm.
Because there were some fights that I was like, stop, no, like she can die. I don't know if you know that. Like I felt myself getting
Good.
very like, no.
Good.
And so
Good.
when you do have those stakes to these fight sequences that, as you said, the first film didn't because there are people who can't die, so it's they can fight however they want. If they get hurt, they'll heal. How was it getting to play with that tension a little and get to explore what that's like both behind the camera and knowing that the audience is going to have that information and that tension when they're watching it?
It was so fun because it's like a thing. It's like sort of having a secret or a whisper. Someone tells you something, but you can't tell anyone. They'll get to know soon, but you have to wait an hour, let's say. So you don't tell anyone, just hang on, hang on. So that feeling of like, ah! So making the movie was a bit of that, was that while we were filming, there are things in scenes that people don't realize until the end of the movie. And there's a big sort of, oh my God. And there's a number of them. And so the diligent care to how a person, stands when they're interacting with another person, how they're checking the door if someone comes in, when and where they can be harmed, when and where and how they can harm another. So there was a really great, diligent sense of each individual character's movement through every scene and every sequence across each act of the film. And that includes Copley, who is mortal, has never ever been immortal, will never be immortal that I know of. But so when he walks into a room and what that means for him, and also he's a person who hasn't fought or been in the field in a while. So prior to when we meet them in this movie, but in the
Yeah.
last movie he was not out, running around in battle or combat with anyone. So that is a fresh, exciting thing that we have to be responsible and loyal and considerate of. And just a piece of trivia that I love is Chiwetel chose to use his non-dominant hand. I believe he's lefty, but in the movie he used his right hand. So he trained in the first film and this one. He trained the whole movie how to shoot, load. So his character is a righty. He just did that to challenge himself. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that
I love
amazing and great?
I love him so much.
But and
Well,
then also, with Joe and Nikki, because the choreographer Joe and Nikki, they always fight together. So they fight in tandem. One starts a blade, the other ends a blade. You know what I mean? One cuts the thighs, one cuts the knees. So it's paying attention to how they fight and protect each other was also really, really interesting.
yeah, well, and I wanted to ask, it feels weird to be like, you have a bunch of legends in this, but you do, because the first movie, it's Charlize and Chiwetel, like, who we love, and we're all like, yeah, they're legends. We will watch anything they're in. And then you add in Uma, and I was like, now it's just growing, and it's just people that I'm like, yeah, I will literally watch anything they do. But when you have these actors who are, you know, recognizable. Just if you say first name Uma, actually, if you say first name any of those three,
Mm-hmm.
people are like, I know who you're talking about. How is it getting to work with them as actors and creating characters that are so far removed from like who they are as people that like audience know that the audience may know them as?
Well, you know what's fun is the thing that I really appreciate about this movie and why I was excited to do it is the first film. Watching it, the cast members are each of them are beloved in multiple countries. So, she's called Veronica in real life. We call her Van. Veronica is a massive action star. She's Vietnamese but she's a massive, massive action star. She's a fighter, like she's unbelievable. Henry Golding is enormous. Henry Golding is like well, I don't like to say that. He is his own sense in a megawatt way in many countries. And so, you know, and then Matthias and who he is, and then, you know, Luca in Italy is a rock star, and so on and on and on. And Marwan Hall. So everyone has their own different sense of following. And then KiKi has a following with a specific community. So it's a fascinating thing that everyone is so beloved in a way that you don't want to do them wrong. You don't want to disservice them. And the loyalty of their fan base is very strong. And so I agree when Uma has a one-word name, as we all know. She absolutely 100% is a legend. She's earned that title. I think she was a legend at 19. I mean, her first one was the Dangerous Liaisons, and her performance in that role was just phenomenal. But as far as drama and fighting, Uma means a great deal to fans and to filmmakers, and I was very moved to participate and to explore and to take a ride with her, and I was excited to watch her and Charlize, you know, go toe-to-toe on many levels. And then Charlize, who has her own, obviously, you know, she has covered incredible ground and is a force in her own right in action and drama. And then Chiwetel, who, as you know, we just talked about, is wonderful in a way of how commanding he is in this sort of, you know, stately skill set against, you know, this unbelievable sense of honesty. Like he just is so honest, and I enjoy watching him. And I also enjoy how he configures into all this as the one that sort of, it's not a voice of reason, but to some degree, when everyone, you know, when it looks like, okay, well, all these people can't die, but he can. So he kind of brings logic into certain scenarios, and he's the gatekeeper. But all of them, every actor in the movie has fight experience, and you know they all come of fight history. So including, you know, Chuta, but Henry, all of them. And Matthias, as you know, Matthias in Bullhead and Rust and Bone, you know, is spectacular. And that's, you know, that's close to how his character, and keeping with his character. So he's not really like a weapons guy. He's just bare knuckle, and like that little Viking axe he had or whatever. But
Yeah. Well, my last question is going to be a little weird one, but one of my favorite things to think about all the time is the movie Switch. I cannot like if people say that they don't know it, I explain the entire plot of the movie Switch to them. Because I
that
grew
was
up
my first job. That was my first
Switch.
job.
I don't know why. It's just like I grew up watching it with my dad. It's one of those movies. It's just in my head. But I wanted to ask you, like that, a movie that the minute someone mentions Jimmy Smits, I bring it up. The minute someone
Alan Barkin.
Yeah, Alan Barkin. I'm
This Animal Kingdom thing is going bananas right now because it's on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm like, Switch. But it like just lives in my head and I want to explain it. What for you with the Old Guard 2? Do you hope lives on with fans to where they have that reaction where the minute they're like, oh, this thing, let me talk about the entire plot of this movie that I love.
Okay, so you just brought up so much fun. First, I'm not sure if it was my first movie now as I'm saying that. The first movie I might have been in was actually shot in Rome, in Cinecittà, 30 years ago. So I made a couple of films in Rome before this one. But that movie, I took that movie mainly because of Ellen Barkin. And for the first few weeks of filming, I had no idea it was a comedy. I was like this drama actor out of New York stage, and I thought it was so that's really like funny. Blake Edwards was wonderful, kind, and generous, and that was definitely a moment in pop culture. What I'd love to live on in the Old Guard too is I would love for the discussion about how we love and care and regard the human beings who mean the most to us, with the time that we have on the planet, to endure. And I would love for the invitation of how we would behave if we had a restricted amount of time versus an infinite amount of time. Like the idea of waking up every morning and just asking myself, if I died today, would I be proud of my behavior? Is there anything I missed? Is there something I should have done or would have done or could have done? Is there a difficult discussion I need to have with someone? Is there a group of people I need to fight for and allow people to consider that I am a CUNT because I'm speaking up for a whole group of individuals who have been invisible since the beginning of time? So, do I want to put myself in uncomfortable places to carry this banner that I didn't ask to carry, I was just born into, but do I want to take that on and allow people to be annoyed by me because I have to speak up with this tiny bit of space that I'm given while I'm alive above ground? Breathing in and breathing out is, what am I doing with this hour and this minute and this day? And when I go to bed, did I do something that counts for my existence, or did I just take up space and receive and get? Did I just get mine? I think I would love for the film to invite people to ask, did they give as much as they got?
I hope it will. I think it will. I love that this franchise is back. I love it a lot. And so thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. Good to meet you.
So, to start, I'm going to ask all of you separate questions because I figured that's the easiest way to go about a 4-person interview. So I want to start with you, KiKi. I love that we get to see her. I don't want to call her like a second hand, but she is kind of the person that Andy turns to a lot in this movie, and it is nice to see that relationship grow. For you, how was it working with Charlize to grow that relationship and show where they've been after this time from the first movie onto this one?
I think it was very natural. The first film already sets up so much growth in their relationship. They literally start off fighting each other. And then, it grows into Niall really becoming a part of the team, coming back to save everyone. And so I think in the second film, we just leaned more into that. And I also got to lean into my personal relationship with Charlize, as a mentor, as someone that I look up to. So, it's Niall learning from Andy, but it's also KiKi learning from Charlize.
And Henry, speaking of learning, I love that this guy just has a whole ass library of all of the immortals that he's like, yeah, I've read about all of you. And love seeing that level of nerd in things.
Yeah.
It's like he just has all this knowledge and loves to use it.
Mm-hmm.
When you read something like that and you see that, okay, this guy has all these books and he admits to having read them and knows all this information, how does that help you when you're kind of approaching a character and figuring out exactly how your interpretation of it is?
You tend to try to find sort of examples, and I have this one hero that I love, and he's constantly talking about books and like how well read he is, and it was Marwan. I was like,
all of us based our characters on Marwan.
This guy is just like a crypt library version of Marwan, who's just like, if Marwan could live 1,000 years, what would he do? Lock himself in a basement full of books. So that's
You're welcome.
You're welcome. So, which is kind of true. But no, the complexities of playing a character that has lived over 1,000 years odd. On his own in a very kind of singular existence, and then coming out and being within this amazing brotherhood and sort of group of the old guard. But at the same time, he knows their histories back to front. He's written the compendium of their existence to try to get to the bottom of why these immortals exist. So he knows the secrets, but he doesn't want to scare them off in kind of revealing all too much at the front of it. So it's a wonderful, wonderful character, but definitely inspired by Marwan.
Well, and Chiwetel, I wanted to ask you because you play characters that are often the voice of reason in such a way that it's like I would listen to anything you tell me that I need to do. Like if you're like, no, it's a bad idea, I'm like, great, tell me what's the right. But they're also different from each other. And Victoria was telling me how you challenge yourself, especially with this role where you learned how to do everything with your non-dominant hand. And I think that's so interesting because it changes, like little things would change how you approach something. Is that something that you look for when you make these characters that maybe have a through line with other characters that you've played in the past to make it completely different in your own?
Yeah, I just try and figure out what the physicality of a character is, and I don't know. It's not that I think about it that deeply in a way, it's just what occurs to me, and as I get into the physicality, certain things like that, which seem like a small thing, but actually end up being kind of important, whether a character uses their left hand or their right hand, and it's a way of differentiating the entire experience. So as soon as you walk onto a set, or as soon as you start trying to do something or start trying to interact with people, you're immediately physically reminded of who Copley is, and how he's separate from me. So I always use sort of small things like that in order to just to sit in a character just in a slightly different space.
And Marwan, what's really great this time around is we all saw the love that everyone had for Joey and Nikki from the first movie, and now going into this one, we've all been expecting what is coming next. And so I wanted to know for you, how was it going from the first movie and seeing the kind of reaction that people had to this love story that spanned thousands of years, and then going into this where we see a little bit more of a complicated relationship between them, but that love is still there?
Well, in a certain sense, it would be a natural development for these two characters to see some cracks, and then obviously leaning on how much they care for each other or about each other, to sort of have a bit of a realistic approach within the magical realism, and to see what kind of heavy weather they can sort of survive together, and what their biggest fear is for each other and for themselves. I think that was mostly the color or the brush for both of them in the second part, and the element of trust and loyalty towards each other, and like lying or telling the truth. All those aspects were for the two characters were the core element of the second one.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask all of you guys this question because I have never felt more tense watching a movie where a bunch of immortals were fighting than when some of the immortals were no longer immortal, and I was like, no, stop, you don't know that person now will die. And I was almost yelling at my TV the entire time. So I wanted to know, how much fun was it to go from the fight sequences in the first one where, sorry, Chiwetel, I know you're immortal, so it doesn't really apply, but like those fight sequences where they were immortals fighting, to the sequel where it was a little bit more dangerous for everybody and the stakes had to be shifted in fight sequences?
I think that was something that was very important for Charlize and the producers with the first film. In the graphic novel, Andy doesn't lose her immortality, but they wanted to raise the stakes. They wanted audiences to have the reaction that you had. If you're watching people who can't die go and fight, it's like, well, obviously they're gonna be okay. They're gonna keep coming back to life. But if there's potential, like, oh no, like one of them could actually, like, this could be the end, it does put a different feeling in the audience, and they were super, super intentional about that. I think it gives the audience an opportunity to just have more of an emotional reaction to those sequences beyond them being, incredible, badass action sequences.
Yeah. Well, and another question for all of you, it's been a couple of years since we saw The Old Guard, and I have never really seen a movie that, kind of premiered, everyone slowly became obsessed with it, and then we had to wait years, and we've all slowly continued to be obsessed with The Old Guard throughout those years. How exciting is it now to have the sequel coming out and knowing that there are people like me and my nerd friends who've been waiting the last however many years it's been for this continuation.
Well, I'm very happy that you say that because obviously it's been a while, but you know, I think I can speak for all of us that we're, or let me speak for myself at least. I'm very
Yeah. Don't speak for me.
Oh God.
I'm very happy that the movie and the movies have a loyal fan base, and I'm just very happy and grateful that the movie's finally going to hit the screen, and I'm excited to see it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So thank you.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, of course, it's very fun, and I miss them. And so the minute it started, I was like, great, my friends are here.
Thank
but
you.
I did, for our last question, want to ask you guys, you know, this action movies are not easy. And I think the best time you can have with an action movie is when it is mixed with different genres, because you get to explore the action sequences and character in a very different way. What for each of you is the joy of getting to bring action to life in something that is so unique, like The Old Guard, where all of these characters have such unique perspectives on life, and you know their time here because it is infinite.
I think, speaking for myself, I think each immortal is fighting for something different, be it love, be it survival. Like, you know, some of us don't have the qualities of immortals, but you,
Some of us.
this guy.
Might not be immortal. Got it. Yeah.
But I think you know, over the millennia of existing, you find the purpose of fighting, and suddenly you're all in a group and fighting for the same cause, and to see that synergy is magic, you know.
Yeah, I love this movie a lot. I love this franchise a lot. So I hope I don't have to wait as long for a third one. I hope it's quicker. But thank you guys so much for talking with me today. I
Thank
really
you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're so
you.
sweet.
Thank you.
guys have a great one.
Bye.